In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you a ridiculously easy and surprisingly great tasting recipe for cabbage juice. You don't even need a juicer for this recipe. I'll be sharing with you exactly how to make it, and I'll also be sharing some of my favorite success stories of other people who were able to heal their digestive issues with cabbage juice faster than they ever could with medication or doctor's visits. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video to hear all about those, and I would also love it if you would go ahead and like this video to let me know you're excited about this topic. So without further ado, let's dive in. So cabbage juice is great if you struggle with gastric and digestive issues like ulcers, IBS, or ulcerative colitis, and you want something that you can easily make at home yourself. You're only gonna need 3 ingredients for this recipe and just a few pieces of equipment. I'm gonna link all the equipment you need down below in the description of this video, so make sure you go to the description and click the links to check those out. So the tools you're gonna need are any kind of blender, and I highly personally recommend a Vitamix Blender for this, just because a high-speed blender is going to give you the best results. And if you do want to actually juice your cabbage and you find it to be a little bit faster and cleaner than blending, the juicer that I would recommend getting is the Nama J2 cold press juicer. Next, you're gonna need some jars to store your juice, and I prefer to get glass ones in case I want to freeze them. You'll need a fine mesh strainer or a nut bag to strain your juice once it's out of the juicer or the blender. You'll need a large bowl to collect your juice after straining. You'll need a pitcher to pour your juice from the bowl into the jars. And lastly, this is optional just for additional ease, but you'll need an apple corer and slicer. So like I mentioned, check out the description to grab all those items that you need. And so now for the recipe. Like I mentioned, this recipe is incredibly easy. All you're gonna need are 2 heads of red cabbage, 2 bags of Honeycrisp apples, and I get 3-pound bags for these. And then optional is to add some ginger root. So I do about ½ pound of ginger root. So now let's go over the process for making the juice. First, you're gonna wash all of your produce thoroughly, and if you get conventional produce and you're concerned about the pesticides, I like to wash mine using either hydrogen peroxide or vinegar, and that pretty much helps knock out all the pesticides. Then you're gonna wanna chop up your cabbage and core your apples, depending if you're juicing or blending. If you're juicing, you can actually skip the step of coring the apples and just cut them in half, but if you are using the blender, you're gonna wanna core the apples. So if you're juicing, it's gonna be pretty simple. You'll just add all the ingredients directly to your juicer and juice them all up. And then you'll use the strainer if you want them to be extra smooth, just to strain out any additional pulp. If you're blending, you're gonna alternate between filling the blender about half full with cabbage, apples, and the optional ginger, and then adding 2 cups of water. Next, you'll blend it up, and you'll wanna make sure you blend it long enough for it to be as smooth as possible. Next, you'll strain the blended mixture into a bowl and make sure you strain it nice and well to get as much juice out as possible. You'll continue alternating this process until you've gotten through all of the cabbage and the apples. Lastly, you'll pour the juice from the bowl into your pitcher and use the pitcher to fill up your glass jars. You're gonna store these in airtight glass jars, either in the fridge or the freezer, depending on how long you want to keep them. So I want to talk about why cabbage juice is so incredibly powerful for gastric disorders. I first learned about cabbage juice from my favorite documentary, which is called Super Juice Me, and I'll link that in the description below for you guys to check it out. And cabbage juice is famous for healing gastrointestinal disorders for 6 main reasons. The first is that it's high in vitamin U, which is known to repair and protect the stomach lining. The second reason is that it's anti-inflammatory, so it helps control those flare-ups you get with GI disorders. The third reason is that it stimulates mucus production in the stomach and intestines, and this mucus is protective to the stomach lining. The fourth reason is that it supports your gut health with lots of great prebiotic fiber. The fifth reason is that it may help fight the H. pylori bacteria that's commonly responsible for gastrointestinal disorders, like gastritis and ulcers. And the last reason is that it's a natural alkalizer, so it helps to reduce any excess stomach acid. So now I'm going to share the protocol with you all on how to incorporate this juice into your diet. But before we do that, I would love it if you could go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you're finding the video valuable so far. So the recipe that I shared with you all for this cabbage juice actually makes 1 gallon of juice. And that's because what you'll want to do is you'll actually want to drink 16 ounces of this juice every single day. You'll need to drink it consistently for several weeks if you want to see long-term results. And so the reason that it's 1 gallon is because that's enough for 8 servings. So that way you'll only need to make this juice once per week and you'll save lots of time and hassle. Since they last about 4 days in the fridge, what you can actually do is you can put 4 of your juices in the fridge and the other 4 in the freezer. And make sure you leave about 1 inch of space at the top of the jars when you are freezing them so that your glasses don't shatter in the freezer. Then when it comes time to drink them throughout the week, you can just easily thaw them out under some room temperature running water. Going forward, once you're having the cabbage juice, you'll also want to try to stick to as much raw and fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet as possible, because this healthy prebiotic fiber and vitamins and minerals are only going to help speed up your healing process. And ideally, if you want really fast results, what I actually recommend doing is a 28-day juice fast or any kind of extended juice fast, depending on your unique situation. And the first success story that I'm going to share with you guys is actually about a man who healed his ulcerative colitis doing a 28-day juice fast with the cabbage juice. So now I want to share with you guys my favorite success stories, and I think this is one of the most exciting parts to see how much people have had success with the cabbage juice. And the first one is going to be John Zorer from the Super Juice documentary that I mentioned earlier. So John was struggling with ulcerative colitis, and he had been battling it for 6 years. And he had actually been untreated for his colitis because the medications that he was taking were having all kinds of really unpleasant side effects. He was even experiencing vision loss and really scary things like that. So he did a 28-day juice fast on nothing but juice and was having the cabbage juice in his diet almost every single day. It did take him about 20 days to start feeling better, but once he was over the hump, he didn't experience any more pain or problems from his ulcerative colitis. The next story is going to be Dr. Terry Rhodes, and I'll link her YouTube channel for you guys to check her out. So Dr. Terry used to struggle with burning pain and ulcers in her stomach, and she would experience symptoms from eating only really small amounts of food. She shares on her YouTube channel how she was able to heal her ulcers naturally with no drugs by drinking cabbage juice regularly in her diet. And she now helps others by selling an ebook about how she was able to heal her ulcers and shares her own protocol for how she incorporated the cabbage juice into her diet. And this last success story that I found is from a Reddit forum, and the user is JJ Sweet Pea. So I'll link this thread on Reddit for you guys to check it out. In her story, she shares that she battled severe gastritis and ulcers and would experience terrible pain even when she just drank water. She started drinking lots of green smoothies that had cabbage in them, as well as drinking cabbage juice. And for extra benefit, even started taking a supplement that's known to have the same active ingredients as cabbage juice. She reported a year later that she considers herself to be practically normal now, and that she can eat all the foods that used to be triggers for her, like ketchup, chocolate, citrus, and all the other foods that tend to cause gastritis flares. So these are just 3 of my favorite success stories. But if you Google cabbage juice for GI disorders, you'll find hundreds more that you can be inspired by. So I hope that you guys will check out the cabbage juice. And if you're interested in doing a 28-day juice fast like John did, make sure you check out my experience of doing one so that you can know what to expect at this video right here.